The Ben Simmons saga, stalemate, whatever you want to call it, continues. But should Sixers fans be hopeful about him returning to play for Philly this season? And did Tom Brady really diss Patriots fans in his retirement announcement? Good Wednesday morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright, Chris Broussard, Kevin Wildes. Why the cold shoulder from Brady, Kevin Wildes? Why do that?
Well, I'm not 100% sure, Jenna, but I have a hunch. I have a hunch it'll all work out for Patriots Nation.
Your hunches are generally right on the money unless they're not. So that's something to look forward to.
Denial.
All right, we will get to
denial,
that.
Jenna.
We got to start on a more serious note. Former Dolphins head coach Brian Flores has filed a lawsuit against the NFL, the Miami Dolphins, the Denver Broncos, and the New York Giants. Flores claiming unfair hiring practices, racial discrimination by both the Giants and Broncos after getting passed over for head coaching positions by both teams. Broncos back in 2019 and the Giants just this week. Among other things laid out in the 58-page lawsuit, Flores alleging his interviews were a, quote, sham to comply with the Rooney Rule. All right, Chris Broussard, I want to start with you. What was your reaction to all of this yesterday?
Well, first of all, Jenna, I salute Brian Flores. I'm proud of what he did. It was a strong power move. And unfortunately, it was totally necessary because it has been proven time and time again that not just in football, but in many aspects of society, that some whites will not hire African Americans in fair or representative numbers unless they're forced to, unless pressure and heat are put on them. And that's what Brian Flores is doing with this lawsuit. So again, I salute him. It is utterly ridiculous that in a league that is 70% African American as far as players, that 1 out of right now 27 head coaches are black. All right, 1 in 27. All right, I'm not saying it needs to be 70% black coaches, but somewhere between our 13% national population and 70% players in the NFL, there's a happy medium in there, and it ain't 2 or 3%. Which is where that number stands right now. This is a continuation, what's going on in the NFL, of what has always gone on in football. Years ago, African Americans were told they couldn't play middle linebacker. They couldn't play the center position. Up until a couple decades ago, they couldn't play quarterback. All right, because those were the cerebral positions. Obviously, coaching and front office positions are cerebral. So this is just a continuation of that. You can't do it on the field anymore because that's objective. Whoever's fastest, whoever's strongest, whoever's the best, I got to take him regardless of color because I got to win. But in the front office hires, the coaching hires, it's subjective. You know, it's not black and white, no pun intended. And that's where the prejudice and the racism still festers. And one of the things that frustrates African Americans most is that the goalposts for these positions keep moving. Years ago, African Americans were told, well, you got to be a coordinator, offensive, defensive coordinator. Many were defensive coordinators. Well, no, you got to be an offensive coordinator. You know, it's an offensive league. You got to be able to call plays, all that. Now you got some offensive coordinators like an Eric Bieniemy, a Byron Leftwich. They don't have jobs. But look at Matt Nagy, Doug Peterson, Brian Daboll. If you're an OC for a good team, you get a head coaching job unless you're black. And that is what he's addressing. And now that you have a few black coordinators on the offensive end, this criteria is totally gone now. Josh McDaniels just hired by the Raiders. He failed miserably in Denver, went 11-17, was caught cheating, fined by the league for videotaping the 49ers practices, walked out on a job he had agreed to in Indianapolis a few years ago, and he gets hired. Josh McCown is one of the front runners in Houston. He's a high school quarterbacks coach. He's never coached at the college or the pro level. Steve Wilkes, a black man, is fired in Arizona after one season for a college coach, Cliff Kingsbury, who had a losing record. This is ridiculous. And again, this is why it is necessary for Brian Flores to do what he did, unfortunately.
What you're talking about at the end, there's a political phrase for it. It's Calvin Ball. It's from the old Calvin and Hobbes cartoon, which is the rules of the game are in perpetual motion, changing, just ensuring the result that someone wants. And the rules of this game continue to change. Now, I had two different avenues that I was thinking about going down this. And you talked me out of going down the one that my gut was. My gut was, I'm going to prove it to you mathematically. I've got the Bayes theorem at my disposal. We can do the numbers on percentage of players that become coaches, and the statistical impossibility that if it's random, if it's fair, if it's just meritocracy, that we would have one team currently coached by a black guy, that the last two hiring cycles, 16 jobs have been open, one was filled by a black guy, and that guy was summarily fired. And a lot of people thought he was hired to be fired in David Culley. But I don't know if people want math this early in the morning. So instead, I'm going to go to the more emotional reaction, which is this. If you woke up tomorrow and half of the head coaches in the NHL were black, would that strike you as a little odd? It's like, well, how did that happen? The league is, 2% black and half the head coaches are black. If you woke up tomorrow and half of professional hockey's coaches were black, would you think, well, there must be some type of sustained effort or something, but not just a meritocracy that is happening that is leading to this? Of course you would, because it's unimaginable. But that is exactly what is happening in the NFL on a statistical basis, as far as to have 70% of the league in a league where the vast majority of head coaches and coordinators played at least at the collegiate level, to have this minute amount of representation. And it is the most frustrating thing for me, Wilds, is this, that the response to anything like this from folks that don't want to see what is clearly in front of their faces, well, you just want to hire the best person for the job. Of course you do. Of course you do. But it is the implication, and you see this across fields, that, hey, why are white people, mostly white males, at the top of almost every field in America? Well, it must be meritocracy. Like, say that thing out loud. Think about any industry. And it's like, even in sports, where you can't be like, well, white people just have more access. No, black guys all over the league. And yet still, when it gets to, as Broussard said, the positions where it's like, okay, but we need a thinker. We need a real smart, cutting-edge guy. There's a clear ceiling on what the vast majority of NFL ownership believes black people are equipped to do. And it is undeniable, statistically, Wilds. And I do think it's going to take a seismic event like what Brian Flores is doing to potentially try to change the paradigm, because it's going in the wrong direction. The hiring cycles have gotten wider and wider, not more and more diverse over the last few years.
I think your hockey metaphor nails it. Broussard, I thought what was interesting yesterday was the news cycle was divided into two stories. Tom Brady retired and Brian Flores filed this lawsuit. And for Tom, there's both guys in their 40s. And for Tom Brady's in his 40s, it was all, let's look back at Tom Brady's career. Brian Flores is in the 40s. He's got his whole career ahead of him. And knowing that he put that entire career that is ahead of him in jeopardy is historically courageous. Go back on Brian Flores. Brian Flores grew up in Brownsville, went to Boston College, joined the Patriots when he was 23 as an assistant scout. He worked all the way up the Patriots, leadership ladder, famously said, Malcolm go, to call Malcolm Butler on the field to make the greatest defensive play in Super Bowl history. Sorry, James Harrison. That's it. And Brian Flores is right there for it. Gets a head coaching job. Now, there's ways that he could go here, Broussard. He could have said, you know what? I'm still a candidate for four more jobs. He interviewed with the Saints, interviewed with the Texans, interviewed with I think he had a Bears interview too, but he could have just kept on going. He's like, if I don't get one of those jobs, I'll get a coordinator's job. I'll lay back a little bit, I'll get another job. There's millions of dollars at stake, and he put that in jeopardy because he knew there was a greater good. And that's what he's going after. And we don't know how this is going to play out. Something's going to change, though. I think the smart money is there is going to affect some sort of change. And we talked about Curt Flood in the meeting. I think the parallels to Curt Flood are right there. That Curt Flood fought for free agency, never personally benefited from it. And when we see the effects of Curt Flood, it's beyond baseball. What Curt Flood did for free agency set the structure for all sports. So not just players. Yep. Bryce Harper is benefiting from Curt Flood. Newspaper writers are benefiting from Curt Flood. Everyone benefits from free agency except Curt Flood. So what Brian Flores set into motion, we don't know how it's going to play out, but I think it will not only be good for black coaches in the NFL, I think it will be good for coaches across all sports and sport itself. It had to start somewhere, and Brian Flores started something at great personal risk, and I thought it was very courageous.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so courageous, because Wildes, and Flores acknowledged this in a quote yesterday, he put his career in jeopardy. He likely sacrificed his head coaching career for this. And you mentioned Curt Flood. It's similar to Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick was outside of sports, but he still sacrificed his football career for a fight that was bigger than himself. And that's what Flores did. And while I applaud him for it, it is unfortunate that he, as an individual, is going to have to pay the price for this. Because I have said for more than a decade, if African-American players en masse, and white players and other players could join them as well, but specifically the black players, if they stood up en masse with the support of the Players Association, which is led by a black man, DeMaurice Smith, they could make a difference. If you stand up as a unit and say, we walk out, work stoppage, whatever, we are not content with 3%, 7%, 10% of the coaches in this league being African American. And we're not standing for it anymore. Or even if the coaches, so it could be players and or coaches in unison walked out or made a stand that we're not taking it anymore and we're not playing or coaching until this changes, then it wouldn't come on one guy to give up his career to get something done. It would be all of them working together, and you can't get rid of all of them. You might not be able to get rid of any of them if they stand together, Nick. And it's unfortunate that they didn't. And so Flores has to sacrifice his career for the greater good, and hopefully a greater good comes of this.
And we are talking in the macro. In the micro, there are some explosive allegations here. Him alleging that Stephen Ross said, hey, I'll give you an extra $100,000 per loss to tank. I don't think that's necessarily racially based, but I don't think the NFL likes that. The fact that Belichick, it would appear, meant to text Brian Daboll, texted Brian Flores, and, revealed that Brian Flores' interview with the Giants was a total sham, which is always been the fear post-Rooney Rule, that you are getting tokenized interviews, that guys there was a good article about this, I think USA Today, in the last 5 years, we've had 3 white head coaches hired after the first interview. Meanwhile, you have only had 1 black head coach that was hired with doing less than 5 interviews, that guys are being asked to interview when the job has already been decided. But we went micro, we did macro. We can go even bigger, because this is not just an NFL problem. And that's the point. I'm obviously a white guy, but I have enough self-awareness to know being a white guy has smoothed my path to this position. Broussard and I were talking about this before the show. Broussard and I we're all equal partners, but I'm going to use Broussard as an example here. Broussard and I are equal partners on this show. Broussard's path to sitting here was working for half a dozen newspapers, grind, having multiple jobs at a different television network, multiple jobs here, and now he's here. He's as good as anyone I've ever worked with in any field. You know what my path was? I got a job on the radio in my hometown a week out of college. I then got a job on the radio in a top 5 market, and then they put me on TV. Now, I worked hard for it, but There's far too many white folks that don't recognize and acknowledge, man, if I worked just as hard and had the exact same resume, would I have gotten the same opportunity? Would they have taken that chance on me if I was a young black guy? No, they wouldn't have. So, like, it is across industries. And the unending, Jenna, arrogance of some folks to think that the C-suite across nearly all industry is lily white because it's a meritocracy. It's unfathomable to me. And I'm glad that Brian Flores, Jenna, is shining a bright light on it.
Look, it shouldn't be lost on anyone. Brian Flores won 8 of his last 9 games in Miami, 7 in a row, and was still fired after doing a tremendous job down there. Whether or not he ever gets another head coaching job, what Flores did yesterday, if nothing else, was to shine, as you guys said, a light on the lack of diversity in this league. And if he has to sacrifice his future in this league to do that, he clearly believes that this fight was worth it. So good for him. We're going to have so much more on this coming up over the course of the next couple hours. But we want to take a turn right now, talk about, Wildes mentioned it, the other big story came out of the NFL yesterday. Tom Brady, he announced his retirement, his real retirement this time. But did he kind of throw the Patriots under the bus in so doing? This is First Things First. Back after this. Back here, First Things First. Tom Brady making it official yesterday, announced his retirement for real this time. It wasn't the grand exit we expected. It wasn't a sit-down interview. It didn't have a name. Instead, it was a 9-slide Instagram post thanking everyone that helped him become the GOAT over the last 22 seasons. Almost everyone. Noticeably absent from the thank yous were any mention of New England or Bill Belichick, or Kevin Wildes for that matter. But the New England and the Belichick part really stuck out to us. Perhaps hearing the backlash, Brady later did thank the Patriots and Pats Nation, saying beyond grateful and love you all. No mention of you, Wildes. That's okay. You're still part of the team. Hey, Kevin, how should Patriots fans feel after Brady didn't mention New England in his retirement announcement?
Well, I think they should be optimistic, and here's why. Your old buddy Kevin Wildes can't do a lot of stuff. Want me to break down the all 22 like I'm Dan Orlovsky? Can't do it. Want me to break down the nuances of the salary cap and how to restructure Mahomes' contract like Nick? Can't do it. But do you want me to take disparate shards of intel that are floating around and come up with a half-baked idea? Well, partner, you came into the right bar, because we serve that here on tap 24 hours a day. I think this is a long media rollout, and here is my evidence. Evidence piece number 1, the picture that Tom Brady uses on his Instagram. There's tons of pictures you can use. I literally have better pictures of Tom Brady in my basement. Why did he choose this one? Not a great photo. Well, Mark Daniels said, surprise, surprise, the photo that Tom Brady used to announce his retirement was taken on October 3rd inside Gillette. I do not think that's a coincidence. Neither do I, Mark. Great catch. And what did Tom Brady say after this game at Gillette that I paid thousands of dollars for a ticket to go to? Take a listen.
It's been a great stadium, for me for a long time. So I don't know what the future holds. Obviously there could be an opportunity to come back here.
Hello, is he talking about playing, or is he talking about a business? Is he talking about a statue? I'm not sure. Here's one thing I saw, though. Robert Kraft sent out this beautiful message with a little logo on the bottom. I said, what the heck is that? I've got tons of Brady stuff at my house. I went to the game, I didn't see that logo. It's not the TB12 logo. It's not the Julian Edelman logo. It's not any of the Patriots logos. Maybe I'm wrong. That's the first time I've ever seen that logo via Robert Kraft on that letterhead. So I did some little investigating, Nick. I would have said, was that logo there when he left the Patriots? Nope. That was the old letterhead. This is the new letterhead. Seems like something is afoot. And then, of course, Tom Brady said, hey, Patriots Nation, I didn't actually forget about you. Thank you, Patriots, and thank you, Patriot Nation. Beyond grateful and love you all. So that is my case, Nick, that I think there is something major afoot. No way did the greatest football player of all time say, you know what I'm going to do? A 9-page Instagram post. Joe Montana retired in front of 25,000 people in San Francisco. Bill Walsh was there. John Madden was there. It was a beautiful moment. The idea that he knows that as a student of the game and said, you know what I'm going to do since my career has eclipsed Joe Montana, an Instagram post. No way, my friend. I think there is something massive coming to Foxborough. I don't know why you're smirking. Maybe you're shocked that I laid out such a great case, but something major is happening. It's a reason to be optimistic, Patriots Nation.
Come on, I love it.
Thanks,
Nick,
Jenna.
you gotta love it. It's exciting. It's exciting.
Wilds makes a very good
appreciate
case.
it.
He does. And he could be correct. It also could be the old Occam's razor, the most obvious answer, the simplest answer is probably the right one, and that is he's still pissed and is angry that he ever had to leave New England. That I was the greatest player ever when you guys pushed me out the door. When you made me move to Florida's fourth best city to continue my career. When you made me uproot everything. When you made me learn a new system and you made people question, you know what I mean, how good I was really. And not only did you make me do all that, but then we got proof, positive evidence by my performance, my team's performance versus the Patriots' performance and the Patriots' quarterback performance over the last 2 years that I was right and you were wrong. And Brew, I think he's still angry. Do I think the wound will never heal? No, I'm not saying that. But do I think this is evidence there is still quite the wound? And it is not directed at Sully from the north side or the south end or whatever silly little enclaves of Boston there are, or Wilds or any of his old college drinking buddies. It is directed at the organization at all, most notably Belichick, and I think a little bit as well for Kraft, because even though Kraft loved Brady, Kraft okayed it. Kraft always had veto power and didn't execute it. So I think it is that he is still a little upset, and maybe, now this is just me postulating, maybe if he had never left New England, there would not have been as much pressure internally from his family to walk away 1 year short of his age 45 goal. Maybe part of the deal was, okay, honey, if you're going to make us move, we're going to uproot everything, you got to give something as well. You don't got 3 years left, you have 2 years left. Again, that's total speculation, but I don't think it was that Tom Brady is doing a long tease of Patriots fans only to come through the back door at the end and be like, I always had you. I think he's upset. And by the way, I don't blame him, Brew, for being upset.
Yeah, to you, Nick, I say I agree with you. To you, Wilds, I say whatever helps you sleep at night, buddy. All right, if this is what it takes you coming up with some imagination Brady's coming in as an owner, whatever. He still could have thanked him. And to Tom Brady, and here's the thing, Wilds, that photo, yeah, I agree, it was calculated, but I think it wasn't a positive. It was a jab. It was a jab that I'm going to take a photo of me in New England, and then I'm not going to thank you. And to Tom Brady, and y'all, you guys know I like Brady. This was weak. It was weak. I'm very disappointed in Tom Brady. And yes, he does have every reason to be mad and upset and all that, but be the bigger man. You've won. You've won. Obviously, you won the divorce. Belichick hadn't looked great the last 2 years. I mean, look at what Josh Allen did to him in the playoffs. And I get that he wanted to end his career in New England, and maybe that would have been better. But man, you got to go to Tampa Bay and prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that it was mainly you, not Belichick. What you did in Tampa raised your legacy even higher. So I just think that to not thank, and even if he should have thanked Belichick. He should have thanked all of New England, but he should have thanked Belichick, because as great as Brady is, and while he deserves most of the credit for the dynasty, he would not be where he is if it weren't for Belichick. If Belichick hadn't had the guts to start him over a $100 million Pro Bowl quarterback, Drew Bledsoe, Brady's career wouldn't have gone close to being what it did. So he should have thanked Belichick. And even if we were mad at Bill, He should have at least thanked his New England Patriot teammates who helped him win the 6 rings.
Do that at the parade.
So this was a weak move by Tom Brady, and I'm disappointed that he did it because he just waxed eloquently wild about Tampa Bay and everybody in the organization, and nothing.
I know.
Nothing about the Patriots,
It's
and then
all
that
part-
little
it's all
thank you,
strategic.
Patriots Nation,
It
a
was
response to
strategic.
Kraft. That wasn't any better.
No,
What's
it's
he gonna do,
all a
Wild?
slow
Tell us
roll.
what could he do?
I don't know.
He's gonna
I don't
become
know.
a
It's
part
a soap
owner?
opera, and I'm here for it. But here's the thing. The one silver lining to Aaron Rodgers' silly immunized versus vaccinated is now we have to go through with a fine-tooth comb and look at every word and then check the word against the dictionary definition. And Jenna didn't see the word retirement there. Retirement never mentioned in Tom
Nowhere.
Brady's post, so didn't see
Never
it.
said the word.
You tell me.
this
Conveniently
is-
Retired? I don't know.
forgot
People seem to be making a leap.
Patriots and retire.
Aaron
Come on,
Rodgers
those are
getting
two
worse,
important
Wild.
words
Didn't
if you're
just
going
stop
to
while
leave
you're
the
ahead.
sport.
It's just getting worse
Two
and worse.
important words he conveniently left out. All right. We will talk about this a little bit more coming up. It appears Jimmy Garoppolo's days in San Francisco are numbered. Will teams be banging down the Niners' door to deal for Jimmy G? Talk about that next. First things first. Trade talk some Jimmy G now. Found out yesterday from Jimmy Garoppolo himself that he and his reps and the Niners are working on a trade. Look, I think we all saw this coming when San Francisco moves all the way up to get Trey Lance, but then Garoppolo got them to the NFC title game, and we wondered. Well, wonder no more. Jimmy G's on the move. So what is next? Take a listen.
Got a long career ahead of me, so I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the opportunities to come. I just want to go to a place where, where they want to win. I mean, that's really what I'm in this game for. I'm here to play football, here to win football games, and as long as I got that and good people around me, I think the rest will take care of itself.
All right, well, Fox Bet has the odds on Jimmy G's next team if he's dealt. Bucks, the favorite. He will forever be tied to Brady, followed by Pittsburgh and Washington, tied for second. Then the Saints and the Denver Broncos. Broussard, should there be a strong market for Jimmy Garoppolo?
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? Do you want to win? I mean, look, any of the good teams,
care about
any
winning?
of the good teams that don't get Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson should look at Jimmy G after those guys. So Pittsburgh, Denver, Washington, Tampa, Carolina, look at Jimmy G. I actually love him in Pittsburgh. Now, yeah, if they can get one of the better quarterbacks, go do it. But if not, they got a nice running game with Najee Harris, nice receiving core. You know they're going to have a strong defense. I think there should be teams going after Jimmy G without question. He's got the endorsement of Bill Belichick. That's the guy Belichick wanted to go to. So what other coach is going to think, nah, I don't want Jimmy G? And here's the kicker, and I said it, you guys, he's a winner. All right, Jimmy G, and here's the graphic. One of 8 quarterbacks, only 8, to win 70% of their starts.
amazing.
Guys that have started as
This is
many games as
amazing.
Jimmy G, 47. In the Super Bowl era, look at that. It's Hall of Famers, MVPs, and multiple-time Pro Bowlers. That is the definitive Jimmy G graphic. I'm not saying he's as good as those guys, but the fact that he is
you're
in
not?
that list,
You don't say.
come on.
Yes, you
That's
are.
a
Oh,
drop.
you're not
That's a
saying he's
mic
good as
drop.
those guys.
That is
Kinda are.
a mic
It's
drop.
You sort of
So
are.
I hope so. Then
We can end
then
the
he shouldn't
segment,
need to go to
Jenna.
Pittsburgh.
It's a mic drop.
No,
I
let's
don't know
sit.
if we can.
Wow.
I don't know
Let's
if we can.
send him
Pick
to
it up.
Carolina.
Pick up the mic.
Hold on, let's send him to Carolina, and let's just see how that lasts. Carolina, by the way, division wide open. Saints don't have a quarterback. Bucks don't have a quarterback. Falcons have still not recovered from the Super Bowl. So let's send him to Carolina. We're in year 3 of Matt Rule's 7-year plan. So maybe he can, supercharge that and see what it looks like. Because, yeah, I think Jimmy G would be fine in Pittsburgh. It would be a similar situation to the one he found himself in San Francisco. Awesome teammates. And he is asked to do, just please don't ruin it for us, Jimmy. Please don't, on our final drive of the season to go to the Super Bowl, go 0 for 3 and throw a backwards interception? Can you please not do that? And in San Francisco, he couldn't. It was too much to ask. He's like, no, guys, I don't know if you've been watching. Haven't thrown my loop-to-loop interception yet today. I got to check it off the bingo card. So I would love to see him go to Carolina because maybe, finally, mercifully, we can put this quarterback wins with this Z nonsense to bed. Because and by the way, I don't know if Trey Lance is going to be good or not. I was on the record on this. I didn't scout him at North Dakota State. I trust Kyle Shanahan to a degree, but Shanahan also really liked Kirk Cousins. So maybe he doesn't have the greatest eye for quarterbacks. I'm not certain, but I trust what he can do within the offense. And guess what, Wilds? Next year, San Francisco is going to be just as good or better with a quarterback playing his first full season in a few years. Essentially, rookie quarterback. Because what Shanahan has built in San Francisco is quarterback independent. If you were to get a great quarterback, they'd be the best team in football. With a below average quarterback, they've just been one of the best teams in football. Jimmy Garoppolo, on the other hand, has only been in the most beneficial situations possible and still has only managed to make the biggest errors possible in the biggest spots possible. And so I would love to see him go to Carolina. I hope he goes to Carolina. It would be great because if he's a winner, you at least get to 500, at least keep him, hanging around the mix to win that terrible division. But I don't know. There will be a market for him, and some fan base is going to be greatly disappointed.
Jeez, too much. You're too far. Broussard and I were running in lockstep for a long time on Jimmy G. In fact, I run a 10K every year, and I always find somebody. I'm like, I'm going to run with this person.
Nice,
and we run, and then sometimes I pick the wrong person. One time I picked the wrong person. I finished the race. That person was totally dressed by the time. Like, wow, that person really sped up. Broussard, that person was you. We were on the Jimmy G right there. You and me chatting. We got our Walkmans on. We're going. And then all of a sudden, you were gone. Jimmy G's as good as Roger Staubach. I am not there, my friend. I am not.
No, I didn't say that. I did not say that.
You did. That's what the graphic says. That's what the graphic says.
The graphic, not
That's what the graphic infers.
No, that's just a fact, that graphic. That's all.
I think Pittsburgh is perfect. It could be a short meeting. Jimmy G and Mike Tomlin, like, hey, is all you do is win? Like, yeah, me too. Sounds good. Match made in heaven. The one place I hate Broussard, is Tampa Bay. I do not think you want to follow in Tom Brady's footsteps. I think that is not only not a good fit. I think that is a bad pick for everybody. So would you think that with all the Brady, Jimmy G stuff, do you still think that would be a good landing spot? Because I hate it.
I don't hate it. I don't want Carolina, like Nick said. I want Pittsburgh, Denver, or Washington would be my top three if I'm Jimmy G. And maybe then Tampa after that. I'm not as against it as you are.
Send him to Washington.
But yeah,
I'm okay with
like
that.
him to stay away from there. Pittsburgh or Denver, though, are the best landing spots. And Nick, I got to push back. Because you talked about all these great teammates in San Francisco. And yeah, now he does have those. Did they look so great when they were 1-10?
No, Nicky
did they look great
blew
at
his
1-10 when he joined him? Did they look great at 4-12 the year Jimmy G was hurt? No. I mean, so I'm just saying, and you brought it up, the 8-28. You can't run from that, Nick. 8-28.
I'm running towards
it
because 8-28 is about to be Jimmy G's record over the next 36 if he lands in Washington or Carolina. I hope it's Washington. Please let it be Washington. We can put all this nonsense to bed, Jenna.
We don't know where Garoppolo will play. We also don't know if Ben Simmons will play at all. We're talking about him coming up next by the Washington Commanders, I think is what the name was that they came up with. I think that leaked out yesterday. Moving on, let's talk some NBA now. Talk some Ben Simmons. The stalemate continues with the Sixers star, but should Philly fans be hopeful about him actually returning this season? Will he play at all? Going to suit up? We'll find out next. First things first. Talk some Ben Simmons. A new report yesterday detailing the ongoing gridlock between Simmons and the Sixers. This just a little over a week away from the NBA trade deadline. Get this, Simmons has reportedly already lost $19 million in fines, and that number could go up as he's still sitting out and
That'll
still
sting.
reportedly wanting out at this point in time. Nick, you think there's any chance Simmons plays for the Sixers this season?
I do. I actually do. And I think this article pushed that door open a bit. Now, let me be clear, because I know people, that watch this show know I obviously have a good relationship with the parties involved here. I have a close relationship with Rich, Ben's agent. I have a close relationship with Daryl Morey. When I am reporting things, I will tell you as such, this is speculation by me, okay? I reported a few weeks ago that the Sixers are still holding out hope that if Ben is not traded, that he might decide to play. I didn't hear anything from Ben's side of that after that. But the very end of this article, there were two things that stuck out to me in this article, Brew. One was, there was some evidence Ben, I don't think, has handled this great. The whole, he was upset that Doc Rivers didn't come see him when he was in California. Now, did he answer Doc's calls or respond to his texts? No, but he wanted Doc to just show up and see him. Well, that's a little ridiculous. That's a little like, what?
A little?
Like, I wish you would have come and seen me. Well, did he call you and text you? Yes. Did you respond? No. Okay. That ain't great.
Nope.
But the very end, where Ramona writes, he still watches every game. He's still a part of it. It's still his team. Made me think, did Ben Simmons ever think he was going to lose $20 million over this? I don't think so. Did Ben Simmons ever think he was going to miss more than a few basketball games? I don't think so. Did Ben Simmons ever really consider, I might miss an entire season? I don't think so. And did Ben Simmons think, well, if I'm out for 50 games, the Sixers might still be legit contenders to win the East? I don't think so. So all of that leads me to believe, Brew, that if there is not a trade made, that there will at the very least be, Wilds, a meeting of the minds, if you will, where there is a, some type of forum where they can see, can we get you back on the court for the final 25 games in the playoffs and figure this out in the offseason? You can get some money. We can have a better chance to win the title. You can remind everyone that you're awesome at basketball despite your flaws. Like, I do think that door is creaked open. Would I bet on that being the most likely outcome? I would not, but I wouldn't slam the door shut on it.
All right, I want to be solution-based. I think you nailed it, Nick. The door is a little bit open. But when you read Ramona's article, which is excellent, you see they're just at a stalemate. And like any relationship, when you are at a stalemate and you can't go, you probably need a third party to come in, Broussard. So do I think they should go to some random therapist? Maybe. Do I think they should go to some counselor? I don't know. I don't think that would necessarily work. But there is a chance here, excuse me, for the Sixers to kill two birds with one stone and right another wrong. And that is Allen Iverson's relationship with the Sixers organization. I want to just give you this quote. It's an interview that he did with Taylor Rooks. I want to read it verbatim off of my MacBook here. I'm a Sixer for life. I've got Sixers blood pumping through me. Everybody knows I want to help that organization. I don't know why I'm not a part of that staff in some kind of way. Even if it's as a consultant, I will be the happiest in the world, and the money thing has got nothing to do with it. Just me being a Sixer and wanting to help. This is it. This is it. This is a beloved icon in Philadelphia wanting to help. And the Sixers, it's falling on deaf ears. Sixers, you have the biggest problem in the NBA, and you've got a beloved figure who can solve your problem. Bring in Allen Iverson. Have him talk to Ben, talk to the front office, talk to the city of Philadelphia, and I guarantee you, after one meeting, they will be in a better spot they were after the meeting than when they were before, and that is a path that would work to get Ben back on the court.
Look, I hope that both of you are right and we do get to see Ben Simmons play this year. But I think you're looking at this through rose-colored glasses. Because I didn't get the same thing you got from the article. I didn't get that they're close.
Broussard.
And while with you about Allen Iverson,
You guys aren't
he's got
running
Rich
10K.
Paul talking to him. He's got access to LeBron James, and that's not doing anything. He's doing what he wants to do, which is sit out. And if he hasn't, look, he's had every reason to come in and play. Love of the game, raise his trade value, make his money, and none of them have gotten to him on the court. This kid is terrified of playing basketball in Philadelphia. That's it. He is afraid to go out there on the court in Philadelphia in front of those fans. And if he's afraid to do that in a regular season game in November, then what makes me think he's going to do it in the most important part of the season and the playoffs? Like when there's expectations that, oh, if he comes back, oh my, we actually might be able to win the East. Brooklyn's a mess. Milwaukee's down. They don't look as good. Chicago we could win the East. That's when he crumbled last year in the playoffs with the expectations. I don't think he wants any part of going back into that atmosphere for his mental health, at least in his mind. And so, again, I hope I'm wrong and you guys are right. But I don't see him playing this year for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Listen, a big part of this has been Ben Simmons self-admitted, dealing with some, I don't want to say mental health's the wrong word, but that, that he needed some therapy and some counseling to deal with what is going on here, right? He opened that door. I vehemently believe that was not just a parachute he pulled to try to make them not be able to find him. I think it is the most logical path of why won't Ben Simmons shoot the basketball? The discussion we were having 3 years ago is a fear of failure. And for a lot of people, fear of failure is crippling. It is no less crippling than a fear of flying, than a fear of heights, than something that you really do need help to get over, right? That he is, I've been great at this. There's one part of this I stink at. I don't want people to see me be bad at it. And then it metastasized in the worst way possible, Game 7 of the playoff series. I am going to leave the door open that part of the work he has done personally with doctors, with therapists, has helped him in that regard. And so that fear of Philadelphia, and the failure and all of that, that maybe he can get to a place where he can overcome it. Because, Jenna, I don't think that was fake. I think we saw it playing out in his career. We then saw it playing out on the stage.
Oh, it wasn't
And then I
fake.
think we all were like, oh, he's going to play. You know what I mean? I think it really is. I don't want people to watch me fail. And some people aren't good at that. And so I'm going to hold out the possibility, Jenna, that if he can get to a better place with the help of others, that the next time we see him on the court might be in a Sixers uniform. I think it's possible.
Nick, how long? We've been talking about this for years now. You and I, we keep having the same conversation over and over. Maybe this is the small pathway towards him returning. All right, let's get back to football. Talking Tom Brady. The GOAT's walking away after 22 seasons. Any chance, though, he left the door open to come out of retirement? We got Matlock, Kevin Wildes on it. He sees something. Back after this.
You know what, Nick? I'm rubbing it in your face again. Let's go Bengals.
Oh, my God.
Stop it.
This is disrespectful to the Bengals. It's almost as if we don't have a chance. We are going to go into Arrowhead and we're going to beat the Chiefs. Nick, Andy Reid will be outcoached by Zach Taylor, your favorite new coach. Let's go, Bengals.
Greg Jennings, you came out firing on Friday. You did it with bass, and the Bengals pulled through. How did you do it? Please tell us, how did you do that?
Look at him.
I have no words. I really have no words.
This guy.
I just, I talked to Joe Burrow after the game, and
pendant?
Absolutely. It's all about Super Bowl week and leading up to it. So I figured I would show who I really am behind closed doors to you, Nick. And I talked to Joe Burrow, and he actually sent me one of his premiums. So don't mind me. Let's go, Jenna.
I can't believe this is my life. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Unfollow
It's so
Greg on
great
Instagram,
to have
America.
you, Greg Jennings.
Unfollow.
Follow Greg Jennings
Smash that
on
unfollow
Instagram.
button.
The GOAT of takes from one GOAT to another. Let's shift gears, talk some Tom Brady. The 7-time Super Bowl champ, 44-year-old footballing GOAT, announced he's all done yesterday. Put out a lengthy Instagram post thanking everyone who helped him reach such great heights. Almost everyone. We noticed two glaring details in that post. Number one, left out any mention of New England. He later said thanks to the Patriots. And number two, never actually used the word retire in that post. Isn't that something? Wilds, I'm going to start with you. You believe in reading between the lines, or do you think Tom Brady is actually retired?
Well, I don't think he's playing next year. And I think the word retire is interesting, and we can always try to figure out whether he's actually going to submit his retirement papers. That's always like the line in the sand. But I think there's one theory that he wants to retire as a Patriot. I buy that. The other theory that is a little bit more outlandish, Greg, is that he's going to take a year off and play again. And I subscribe to that because I don't think history tells us that that's not going to happen. If you're an elite athlete, the top of your field, and you can still do it, there is a long history of great players coming back quickly. Favre, Jordan, Clemens, Mario Lemieux, Reggie White, Randy Moss, Deion Sanders, Michael Phelps, and Michael Jordan again. These aren't random guys that just said, you know what, I need the paycheck. These are all-time greats who had nothing to prove but still had an itch that they wanted to scratch, and they wanted to come back. So because Tom Brady is retiring at the top of his game, and I know there's other examples, Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, I get it. But those guys were in Detroit. But I get it. But the fact that Tom Brady is at the top of his game, I think that the door is more than a crack open, that he takes a year off, recharges his batteries a la Gronk, and then we see him back on the football field. Do you think that is outlandish, or do you think there is a chance that that happens?
I don't think it's outlandish. However, I don't believe that there's a chance of that happening. None of those players which you mentioned were 44 years old. None of them.
Right.
And when you look at Tom Brady, we didn't. And another thing, and this is not a knock on any of those players you mentioned, we didn't see them as engaged with their family in the offseason. Social media wasn't as prevalent, and they weren't displaying their other side like we've seen in Tom Brady. But this is what I will share with you guys. When you're thinking about retirement, it is far before you actually say the words that you have thought and you pondered this idea. And it takes a long time for you to even get those words to manifest to your lips and then out of your mouth. I know from experience. And I was nowhere near the player Tom Brady was. I was like, he was here and I was just under there. But I digress from that. What I'm saying is before I ever said it, I contemplated for months. And I can only imagine Tom Brady. I wasn't playing at the level Tom Brady was playing. This was 10 years. My last year was in Miami, which we've locked that away. We've thrown all the tapes away. I wasn't nearly the player that Tom Brady was and what he showed us this previous year. And I think sometimes we get caught up in believing that players have to go out on top. And what that looks like to us does not always paint the picture of what it looks like to the individual. Tom Brady led his team on a drive with an opportunity to tie the game. He did his job. He did that. He was successful. He lost because of something that was out of his control. I think he can be at peace with how that ended. And when you think about what he is going home to, he's always showed us who he was with his kids. He's always expressed that. And there was one thing in that letter that he wrote, regardless of him not using the word retirement, he said, I no longer am willing to commit the time it takes or is required to dedicate to competition. Like when he writes that, he is mentally allowing himself the opportunity to check out. And once you check out mentally at any level, specifically a quarterback in the National Football League who has accomplished, no one has accomplished more than Tom Brady and will come close. you deserve the right to just walk out into the sunset and just disappear and do whatever you want to do. So I don't think he's coming back. I don't think he's contemplating it. Does he still have the desire to play? Possibly, but that will fade the more he engages in his other initiatives and his family. We've seen the last of Tom Brady in the uniform.
Yeah, I'm with Greg. Wilds, today, you're just in fantasy land today. You know, I mean, Tom Brady's going to throw a retirement concert in Foxborough. Drake, Kanye, Jay-Z, they're all going to be there. That's why I didn't thank him on Instagram.
Oh, Jay-Z retired once, came back.
No, he's done. All right, and I hope you're right because it's fun. You know, humoring you, yeah. What if Trey Lance doesn't play well next year in San Francisco? Brady could come back in and, swoop in and save the day in San Francisco. That'd be great, yes. It would be great. But I'm with Greg. I don't think it's happening because he'll be 46. Like, if he sat out next season, Wilds, and came back the following year, he would be 46 years old.
He's 44
I don't
now.
think at that age. I get it. He has defied logic so far. But Gronk was 30 when he came back. 30. I don't see Brady's body responding to a year off. Now all of a sudden you're back in the grind of a professional sport. Now you're getting hit again. You're not used to getting hit anymore. I don't see it. At 46 years old, Nick, I don't think Brady could come back.
Yeah. Let me help here because I have a level of expertise on what Wilds is doing here that no one else on the panel shares. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe I'm the only one of the five of us that is a child of divorce. And all children of divorce, depending on when that happens, you have that, my parents, they're going to get back together. I mean, I know they screamed and yelled and hated each other, and now we have to go house. So they'll get back together. I thought I was in high school when my parents got divorced. My dad got remarried. I still thought, they'll eventually get back together. If I'm being honest, I still kind of think they will. It's just something that happens. Wilds has not dealt with that type of trauma. And so now he is tweeting through it. And this is his version of, my parents will get back together. Can we show you what Kevin Wilds' last 20 hours on Twitter have been? All right, so there's this. It's like either it's going to be hearts broken or everything else. Can we show the next Wilds tweet? If we could just keep rolling through, because there's a lot of them. There's the list he just gave us. It's a great list. He already told you. Yeah. The next one. Joe Montana, televised ceremony. Now he's retweeting different things. It's like, wait, is there an acorn here? Give me the next one, guys. It keeps going up until this morning. I hope this is true. Was that your mom and dad?
Cyberbullying.
Together? I hope it's true. The photo, Tom Brady. Now he's doing Zapruder. The photo he used was from Gillette. Oh, it's gonna keep going, guys. There's more. Oh, it's true, guys. Wait, that's another foolish retweet. Oh, he could come back. I promise you he can come back. I think there's one more from this morning. Oh, Pats gave all of Gillette to Edelman. This is Wilds. This is if I, at 14, had Twitter in the day after my parents split up. I'm like, well, here's a picture of us on vacation together. It was happier times. Okay. Remember, I think they still love each other. Kevin, it's not your fault. We're gonna do the Robin Williams, Matt Damon thing. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's not your fault.
Okay.
It's not your fault.
All right. Hey,
but it's not
Super
going
Bowl,
to change.
right? Super Bowl's coming up. Just for the record, who led the Rams in tackles last week? Anybody know? Pop quiz.
Eric Weddle.
Was it Eric Weddle?
Eric Weddle.
Where did he come? How many games has he played in the last 2 years? Oh, he was retired and then decided to come back for the big game? Wow, shocker. Holy
do you know what that
cow.
is?
And now he's in the Super Bowl.
Jenna?
Do I think Tom Brady can come back for a playoff run? Hello, with the Patriots? Oh, my God.
Do you know what that Eric Weddle thing was? Oh, my God. I'm having flashbacks. Do you know what that was? I don't know what you guys are talking about. You know Sarah down the street? Her parents got back together. It happened. No. It happens. I know people say it's rare. It happened. I saw it happen. Like, no. It can happen to me, too.
I don't think it's Wilds that needs help. I think you need the Robin Williams moment, buddy.
Of course I need therapy.
Okay.
Of course I do. But I know it.
Back here, first things first, former Dolphins head coach Brian Flores has filed a lawsuit against the NFL, the Miami Dolphins, the Denver Broncos, and the New York Giants. Flores claiming unfair hiring practices, racial discrimination by both the Giants and Broncos after getting passed over for head coaching positions by both teams. Broncos back in 2019 when they went with Vic Fangio, and the Giants just this week. Among other things laid out in the 58-page lawsuit, Flores alleging his interviews were a, quote, sham to comply with the Rooney Rule. Flores was on CBS earlier this morning. Take a listen.
We filed the lawsuit so that we could create some change. And that's important to me. I think we're at a fork in the road right now. You know, we're either going to keep it the way it is, or we're going to go in another direction and actually make some real change where we're actually changing the hearts and minds of those who make decisions to hire head coaches, executives, etc.
All right, Chris Broussard, what was your reaction to this?
Well, I salute Brian Flores. What he did is very strong, and I'm proud of him. And unfortunately, this needed to be done because in football and beyond, in many fields of endeavor, it's been proven time and time again that many whites will not hire African Americans in fair or representative numbers unless they're pressured to, unless the heat is on. And Brian Flores is putting the heat on the NFL to make some changes. And this is just a continuation, guys, of things African Americans have dealt with since we've been in this country. And in football in particular, there was a time, hard to believe now, but when they said African Americans couldn't play middle linebacker or center, because those are cerebral positions. Obviously, until recently, we couldn't play quarterback, they said, because that, of course, is the leader, the thinker. And obviously, front office positions and head coaching are cerebral jobs. And this is just racial prejudice that they're trying to get away with because they can't do it on the field because that's more objective. And I got to have the best guy. I got to have the fastest guy. I got to have the strongest player because I got to win. It's more subjective in the coaching and front office hires, and that's where this is coming in. And one of the things that upsets African Americans is that the goalpost keeps moving. All right, it used to be, well, you got to be a coordinator, defensive, offensive coordinator. Once you do that, get some experience, then you'll become head coaches. You have some defensive coordinators. Well, you got to be an offensive coordinator. It's an offensive league now. Look at everything. We got some offensive coordinators. And still, Eric Bieniemy, who's had arguably the best team the last few years, can't get a job. Byron Leftwich hasn't yet been hired, even though he's the OC in Tampa. And now, Nick, there seems to be no criteria. It's just no resume needed. Josh McCown is being mentioned as the front runner in Houston, which just fired a black coach, David Culley, who did a good, solid job after 1 year. And they're looking at a guy who is a high school quarterbacks coach, never coached a second at the college or professional level, and he might be your hire? Josh McDaniels just got hired with the Raiders, failed miserably in Denver, 11-17, cheated and was fined by the league for filming 49ers practices, and then pulled out of another gig that he had agreed to with Indianapolis, and he got hired. Cliff Kingsbury, again, they fired a black coach after 1 year in Arizona. Cliff Kingsbury has a losing record at college, at the college level, and he gets the job just when they're getting a great quarterback in Kyler Murray. And meanwhile, Jim Caldwell, who's led a team to the Super Bowl, had 3 winning seasons in 4 years in Detroit, can't get a job. This is what Brian Flores is addressing, Nick, and this is why it is absolutely necessary, and I salute him.
Listen, it is at this point undeniable that this is a systemic issue within the league. It's undeniable from a statistical standpoint. I don't have to give you the regression analysis. If you want to type in the Bayes theorem into your own home calculator, feel free. But with the percentage of coaches that are former players at the pro or collegiate level and the percent of coaches that are black compared to the player pool at the pro and collegiate level that it's black, the idea that 1 of 32 head coaches would be black, the idea that 1 of the 16 openings the last 2 years would have been filled by a black coach, David Culley, who got 1 year and was fired. It's a statistical impossibility unless something else is afoot. It would be no different than if you woke up tomorrow morning and 40% of the coaches in the National Hockey League were black. You'd be like, well, something odd is going on here. Something odd is happening with the NFL. But if you don't like the numbers, then what about the quotes? There is a double standard. One man said, another man said, any criticism the NFL gets for lack of representation at the GM and head coach positions, the NFL deserves. The NFL's grossly underrepresented and underperformed. Who are those quotes from? Troy Vincent and Jonathan Bean. Troy Vincent, my friend, by the way, 2 NFL executives. So the NFL acknowledges this. So what can we do about it? So Wildes, there is a nepotism problem. By the way, nepotism cuts both ways. Black people hire their family and friends. White people hire their family and friends. Problem right now, 14% of NFL coaches are related to either current or former NFL coaches. So the reason that is a problem is because when the guys at the top are so overwhelmingly white, their family is almost always going to be also white. So that's an issue. But you can't look at the numbers and act like it's a meritocracy. Where right now, we're having, and I'm not being political here, it's just a good analogy for the moment, there's a Supreme Court opening. And there's a lot of controversy. There might be a black woman on the court. And you look at the numbers, you're like, well, 94% of Supreme Court justices in this country's history have been white guys. Is that on merit, or is that likely because there is a systemic reason for that? 94% sounds like a lot. Well, 97% of NFL head coaches are currently white guys. It's a worse discrepancy than the history of the Supreme Court in this country. And we're talking about football coaches. So it's undeniable. And it is, to me, Wildes, overwhelmingly arrogant for fellow white people to assume we have gotten to the top of all these fields by merit alone. It's impossible. And so Brian Flores is trying to push it in a better direction.
I agree with you, and at great personal sacrifice as well. There was 2 big stories yesterday, Broussard. One was Tom Brady retiring. The other was this Brian Flores lawsuit. Tom Brady retired, and we looked all the way back on his career. What a career. That's not normal. Brian Flores, it's normal for an athlete. Brian Flores is 40 years old. He is in the prime earning stage of his career. He started with the Patriots as an assistant scout at 23, worked his way all the way up to the head coach of the Dolphins. Now he's looking for another job. He had interviews last week, maybe this week, with open positions, and he decided to go down another path, and who knows what's going to happen. He could have very easily said, you know what, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to sort of play the game here. I'll probably get another job, but he decided not to. And we talked about it earlier in the show. It echoes what Curt Flood did in the 70s when at great personal sacrifice, he put his foot down and established free agency, not only in baseball. Once it was established in baseball, it spread throughout all of sport. So what Brian Flores is doing right now is going to affect change, not even just for black coaches in the NFL. What he is trying to affect could have a ripple effect to all sports and industry, and I also salute him, Broussard.
Yeah, that's well said, Wildes. And he acknowledged yesterday that I may have sacrificed my head coaching career or my coaching career, period. And you said it, he's just 40 years old. All right. And it is unfortunate that, like Curt Flood, that like Colin Kaepernick, this is falling on one guy. And I have said for more than a decade that black players en masse should have stood up about this issue. Whether it's a work stoppage, we're not playing, we're not going to this team, whatever it might have been. And we can throw coaches in there too, assistant coaches, standing up en masse and saying enough is enough. Because if they had stood up en masse, then it wouldn't fall on one brave soul to do it himself. And I think it's unfortunate. He's sacrificing the coaching career that he loves. Did a terrific job in Miami. Too good. They wanted him to lose. And he's going to give that up for the greater good, which is admirable. But it's unfortunate because had more players and coaches done it together, then none of them would have had to sacrifice their careers because the NFL would have agreed and listened to what they're saying.
Conversation continues right now on Undisputed Wealth.